All right. Hi, everybody. Nice to have you with me this morning or today. If you're watching the replay, I'm going to try something a little different here today. I'm going to get a little musical intro going. So, this is a little time lapse that I filmed last year over Christmas. And I put this in the fasting space playlist on the channel. So, the thought behind fasting space is videos, places you can go for thoughtful music, meditation. A lot of places on YouTube you can go, including Simple Fasting Channel, right? Learn about fasting. But is there a place where people can come together and do the practice together? So that's the idea with a video like this. Somewhere, if you're trying to get through a food craving or maybe just something else, an anxiety or a difficult situation, here's a place, beautiful image, beautiful music. I know I like to come. I'm a little biased on this one. Come and just chill out a little bit with it. Can be a nice way to start the day, thoughtful, contemplative. So, Fasting Space Live, this place, kind of the way to do the same thing. I was thinking about this time I was in clinic when I started learning about fasting. It was in a really academic context. I was reading medical papers and trying to understand what is physiologically happening in the body. Okay, I'm a doc, kind of medical geek. Uh, and this is how I used to tell people about it. I'd be working with patients and I'd be going through all the hormone pathways and I'd be saying, oh, your insulin's doing this and the adiponectin level's doing this and the leptin and the ghrelin. And people just be looking at me like, finally one kind woman said, thank you for, explaining all this to me, but, just tell me what works. I was like, what? I was like, oh, you just grab a coffee and just hang out and have a pleasant morning and you'll be good to go. She's like, oh, thank God. It's so simple. That's when I had the thought I should do simple fasting and help people just really embrace, the lack of complexity, strip out everything that we don't need. So that's simple fasting and Fasting Space Live. That's what we're up to here. So tune in to this music video sometime if you find that helpful. Just my little shameless plug. And we'll dial in just to me here. It's daylight savings time. If you if you didn't notice, share in the comments. I'd be curious. Are you someone who enjoys daylight savings time, or is it something you'd rather do without? This is the good one. Fall behind. Certainly don't mind that as much as springing forward. I'll just share my own opinion. I'm not a big fan of daylight savings time, and I think it relates to this whole practice that I'm trying to do is simple fasting. So, fasting, from my perspective, as a physician, as a weight loss provider, we need to really think about how do we get our bodies into natural cycles, running our body the way it's designed to run. And I'll tell you, here's an example: daylight savings time of something that's not running the body in the way that it is meant to be run. So we have in the body all these proteins, clock proteins. We have all these time cycles that are controlling, the complexity of our metabolism. And, something as fundamental as time, like it's not supposed to change, I'll tell you. And so here I was going to share with you a little paper I was reading about. Oh, I'm still learning how to share all these different windows. Reading about daylight savings time and try to understand, well, from a medical perspective, is there any research on it? And I found this interesting paper. Now I'll try to see. Okay, you're seeing me and the paper. I just read you a little highlight for this. The last several years have seen intense debate about the issue transitioning, this is academic language, transitioning between standard and daylight savings time. In the US, the annual advance to daylight savings time, okay, blah, 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 required by law. An abundance of evidence indicates the acute transition to daylight savings time incurring significant public health risk. And they cite these studies showing increased heart attack, mood problems, car accidents. I won't read through the whole thing. Anyway, so you can just type this paper into Google and you'll find it. This is very interesting to me that the literature is starting to support what is kind of just an observable truth, especially springing forward. People feel so badly, cause a lot of medical problems for people who got to time medicines, people with sleep problems, kids, can struggle, school. Nobody feels good. So I think in the bigger picture, as we think, okay, we're here on a fasting channel, we try to focus on burning up blood sugar, losing weight, getting healthy. You know, daylight savings time, maybe it isn't such a big deal, but just the philosophy of it, the thought of it, uh, it doesn't respect the natural cycle. you know, it gets darker in the winter. I don't know. We can accept these things. Do you want it darker in the morning or darker in the evening? Is it really worth messing with our whole circadian rhythm in order to do that? That's another thing the paper goes into. Our circadian rhythm is very important in controlling stress hormone levels, especially cortisol. Cortisol uh, can have lots of impact on our blood sugar uh, and uh, and definitely effects on weight. So this whole thing, respecting the natural cycles of the world and our body, can definitely have hormonal impacts. And hormonal impacts, I mean, I believe ultimately pretty much every weight problem is hormonal at some root. Hormones. We've spent decades focused only on calories, and really hormones, the key to understanding weight. And controlling our diet, how we eat and when we eat, is how we can get control over the hormones that control um, whether we're in an energy storage mode or in a fat burning mode. So people will say, I have a slow metabolism. And people don't realize, okay, the metabolism is dynamic. And by changing what and how we eat, we can change the hormones that control the metabolic set point. And so that's something that I really am interested in helping people do. Okay, so there's some thoughts about daylight savings time as it relates to our body. Okay, I titled this live stream, Build a Vigorous Mind, a Weight Loss Super Strategy. I thought of this. I ran into this quote. Let me see if I can share this with you. Ran into this week. A quote from Leonardo da Vinci. Here we go. I don't know what's better. I like that. Iron rusts from disuse. Water loses its purity from stagnation. Even so does inaction sap the vigor of the mind. So I've been thinking about this quote a lot this week, and I think is very interesting. Very interesting quote. Specifically, okay, this part, the vigor of the mind. When we think about, all right, our mind, our thoughts, I don't know, do we think about building a vigorous mind? This is not a thought that I think about very much. But just kind of, I don't know even where I found this, but there, Leonardo da Vinci, there's a guy with a vigorous mind, genius, master. And so this is a type of he's writing. He's focused on all this. We think of mind, we think thinking. This is where I wanted to go. So we think we want to keep our mind sharp. We're thinking. We think, oh, I'm going to do some mental puzzles, read, do these things. Well, like here, Da Vinci is connecting action to the mind. If we have a healthy mind, we have action. And so this is something I'm thinking about a lot. It's not just thinking about things or having ideas. It's like, do you translate those ideas into action? So I was thinking a lot about this quote. How do we think about this, in a weight loss context, in a health context? How are we bringing this sort of insight into a health thing? Okay, it's easy to have ideas about getting healthier. It's easy to have thoughts or desires or things that we wish would happen or want to do. It's a totally different thing to take action and make it happen, right? That's where the rubber meets the road. Do you have any thoughts about this quote? Anything come to mind while I refresh my coffee? Throw it in the chat. Happy to chat about it, or throw any comments that you have later into the comments, and we chat about it. I think taking action is the biggest hurdle that people face. Tell me if you think that's true. To build momentum, to get in a habit. So habits are something, can be they're like a barrier to get through if we have habits that aren't serving us. And there's something that can be tremendously supportive of health if we get habits that are in a good way. So if we're in a place where we're not completely happy with, you say, I have a health goal. My health isn't exactly where I want it. So we have like point A and point B. How do we get from one to the other? Is it going to take action to do it? So if it takes action, it's the mind drives all of the action. I think this is what Da Vinci is saying. You pick your way that you want to lose weight. Someone says, I'm going to get an exercise bike and I'm just going to bike that thing. Okay, that can work, for some people who have the physical ability and the time and the dedication to do it. And someone else says, I'm going to completely overhaul my diet. I'm going to cut out every piece of unhealthy food. And like, I'm going to totally dive in with that. And then, the more neglected perspective that I'm trying to share with people, embrace a fasting practice. That can be another path. And all of these can mix together. I'm going to take action to enact any of those things. It's going to take mental work to drive that action. So those are the two things that are connected. So I'd encourage people, if you're thinking about this, okay, how can I drive action in my own life? I see, where I am, where I want to go. What is the series of steps that you can take to do it? And I encourage people in general, what is the smallest step that you can start saying? Transformation time now. My favorite saying regarding daylight savings time from Native Americans. White men think they can cut the top off a blanket and sew it onto the bottom to make the blanket longer. Yeah. That's exactly it, isn't it? Like, that is, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I think that's the thought of it. What action can you take? Where do you want to go? And what are the steps that can help you build it? I was talking with a client yesterday, and they were saying, "Oh, I'm stuck in this place where I can just only take baby steps. It's so small." And I said, "That is like a perfectly great place to be. Like, from my perspective, baby steps, perfectly acceptable way to go about it." The average person who goes through some sort of health process, I mean, this is kind of the cliche thing. Wait till New Year's, hit New Year's, go super hard, get some results, burn out, and then just kind of settle back, by March into where it was before. Small steps, all right, easier to keep yourself from getting overwhelmed, easier to feel in control of it. slow and steady progress over time builds up over time, and then you're building a stronger base. This is what I was trying to tell that person. Like, you're building a base here of continuous positive momentum. And then I like it with this quote, that's continuous action. So if you're taking small, tiny steps, that's like continuous action. That's the opposite of what uh, Da Vinci is saying. So I really like that. So as I'm reading through this, as I'm talking to you about taking, small actions, are there things that are coming to your mind? As I read the Da Vinci quote, about inaction is sapping the mind, does something come to you to say, ooh, that hits, maybe it's something in, that your subconscious is rolling over, say, oh, this is something, that you really want to do it. Maybe you say you need to do it, but then you don't do it. So, like, those are the kind of critical things. How can you take, small concerted action in that direction? Did I say this last week? I think, like, what does it look like to walk along the river? You have the ideas like the river. You don't have to jump right in. You don't have to swim right across. You can just walk on the side for a while. Maybe that's the action. Bringing these things to a more front of mind sort of place, and just thinking about it. Like, that's also a fine place to be. If you got something like that comes to mind, that you wanna share, throw it in the comments, and be very happy to just hear what are people working on. If there's specific things, of course, where you're like, "Oh, I'm having trouble making this step," those are things that I'd be very happy to, chat with people about, and, I'll give you any reflections that I can about that. Make each day filled with action. That would be something, I've found a great benefit from journaling in the morning and trying to figure out, what is one thing. I try to do that. Like, what is the very top priority for me in this day? So many things vying for our attention. We can be so scattered, and it can be hard to really focus. And so I've tried to make, you know, like, if I win this day, how do I win this day? I will have done, at least this, no matter what happens. So there would be another sort of concept in this sort of regard that you might consider. If it's a health goal, if it's something you're really trying to move toward, right? Everybody knows, right? It's difficult really to change uh, health related habits, whether it's, some sort of exercise or dietary process. Maybe if you have a little journal, maybe you just start one just for this purpose, just write it out for this day. Hey, I'm going to win this day by doing this. And then that's going to help bring it to the top of the mind. And then maybe come back to it at the end of the day. If you actually did it, give yourself a big check mark, like, give yourself some real encouragement. Um, and then if you didn't do it, be gracious to yourself and maybe just reflect a little in that space about why it is. Say, hey, here I set out to win this day by doing this and it didn't happen. And, like, here is why. And always be gracious to yourself. So what I say is, like, if you were confiding in a friend, or like a friend was confiding in you, say, hey, I'm trying to do this and I didn't do it. Like, you would be very kind to them, right? You would try to help them see the good and congratulate them for trying. And I think many times we're much more friendly with, like, a friend than we are to ourselves. And so if you're going through that, build some self-compassion with it. And so that would be a way to approach it. Use that journaling space too to think positively. Try to psych yourself up a little bit. Do some reflecting, like, how are you thinking when we think about a vigorous mind and we think about action? Like, what are the thoughts that you're having if the thought is driving the action? Are you thinking positive thoughts for yourself? Are you telling yourself encouraging things? Are you are you picturing yourself accomplishing the things that you want, or are you allowing, negative thoughts to, even starting your day, you're starting with a negative thought, like, I wish I could do it, but I'm sure I won't. Like, don't let yourself think those thoughts. Those are limiting thoughts. Fill your thoughts with positive things, like, you know what? I am going to make this small step today and it's going to feel really good. And here's how I'm going to do it. And you might find that frame of mind actually makes it more likely that you'll be able to do it. So I'll say, since this is a fasting channel, for my part, I'll tell people if you're trying to make a small positive change, either to help burn up blood sugar or help you lose weight, I mean, I'm very biased, of course, but I tell people consider just leaning into a fasting practice, but very, very slowly and gently. And of course, talk with your medical team, make sure it's appropriate. I got videos on the channel on like top reasons not to practice fasting. The main one I put on there, just if you don't want to, like if you're like, oh, this, I'm learning about it. I'm not sure it's for me. Like, don't stress about it. But here's for your consideration. If you watch the average YouTube video on fasting, okay, you'll get two kind of ones. You'll get a 16:8 sort of one that is like, eat a brunch dinner or some, 8-hour window, or you dial it in 18:6. And I like that. But the reality is that a fasting practice is much more flexible. There's nothing that is uh, magic about exactly, 8 hours versus 10 hours versus 6 hours. So I encourage people to be much more flexible. If you're having trouble getting going on some sort of dietary practice, some sort of weight loss practice, say, well, I'm also intimidated by this idea of fasting. Okay, everybody's fasting overnight, right? That's why I put the live stream in the morning, because you've already been fasting overnight. You can just grab a coffee. Here we're doing the practice together. We haven't had any breakfast. Like, this is the way. Instead of eating the food, you're going to drink some beverage that you like, and he's saying, okay, normally I'm getting up at 7 o'clock and I eat breakfast right away. I was like, can you have a coffee and make it till 7:20? I was like, you just opened up 20 more minutes where you're running the body on the storage. And maybe over the course of the next months, what if you just march that out by 5 minutes in a day? Maybe that's the thing that you are ticking off in the journal. Like, I'm going to win this day if I can just open up another 5 minutes of fasting space in my life. And that's teaching the body slowly, gently over time to run off the storage. What if it took you 6 months to be able to ultimately get out towards some 16:8, sort of process where you say, I'm going to have brunch around 10, and you could just march that out. There's no pressure. There's no rush. It's all good. And if it takes you 6 months to learn how to do something, it's like, it's going to be 6 months from now at some point. So, I mean, if you can do it all now, do it now. But if it took 6 months, you see what I'm saying? Don't have to stress about it. All right. In my life, the thing I'm gearing up for, I'm running a marathon next weekend. So, first time in my life I've ever attempted to participate in a marathon. I did run cross country in college for only one semester, which burned me out. And we had some big 20-mile run one day then. But I've been training. I'm gearing up. We'll see how it goes. I'm a little intimidated, but the thought that I'll kind of leave you with today here is, people do hard things. And this is the thought that has been uh, kind of motivating me for the marathon, because I was like, I don't know, can I even do it? I still don't know. We'll see. But people do hard things. It's good to attempt hard things. And, my wife was saying, she's like, look, if you are like, you're 18 miles in and you don't feel good, you can just stop and say you gave it a shot and maybe try it again, or don't. So, yeah, trying a hard thing. This is the balance that I try to set for people. So almost all the time when I'm talking to people, okay, learn fasting. My default 99% of the time, do the 5-minute thing. Take it very slow. Don't overwhelm yourself. The other side of the coin is, if you're a human being, you're capable of doing hard things. And okay, is fasting hard? Well, fasting at a level that is beyond your comfort or capability is hard. Some people just want to dive into that space. Yeah, I never tell people to do that. I tell people ease into it and allow the body the space to train and learn how to do it. Yeah, that is pretty much always the right way to go. You don't just jump in and run a marathon. Okay, it's not like I'm just jumping in and running a marathon. I've run like a dozen half marathons this fall, So that's the training. That would be like fasting. Start small, you know, tiny little runs, go for a jog, build it up till you can train into something bigger. But also, the marathon exists. It's a real thing and people can do it. And you can build that up to a higher level of fasting that is over time. I guess that's what I'm saying. And so don't be intimidated by it. Just approach it in a calm and thoughtful way. So all that is to say, next week, there's still going to be Fasting Space Live. I'm just going to record it a day ahead of time. I'm going to sit and have a little chat. And so it'll still play 8:30. Come in the chat, leave comments. We'll have a little delayed response. I'll come back from the marathon and answer some comments if you have it. Okay, I hope those are helpful thoughts for the day. And real nice to have you here with me. And I will see you back on the channel soon.